Hello, Dave.
Hello, Matt. How you doing?
Tired, but otherwise okay.
Good. Good. I think we're all getting a little tired. There's something about this time of year where you just never get enough sleep.
Well, Tuesday, I got out of work, and it was snowing, and I'm like, it's Halloween. This sucks. And we had a bunch of stuff that I had to put away for the winter, and I got home, and I'm like, well, it's snowing now. I need to get it put away now, and I think I wrenched my shoulder too hard. So for the past 2 days, it's been, don't look up, don't lift your arm that far, don't lift anything heavy. I'm like, I just need to sleep on the heating pad, but I've just been busy.
Yeah. Sure sounds like October, November to me. Apart from the snow part, we haven't had snow yet. I shouldn't say that out loud.
Well, a week ago, I took my car in, and the dealership had the Weather Channel on. So for an hour and a half, I watched the Weather Channel, and I'm going, I understand the purpose of the Weather Channel. I also understand it's the poster boy for, you have a TV channel, you have no content. You're just going to have people talking about nothing. And one of the things they were saying is there's a cold Arctic front that's coming down, but there's a warm front from the last hurricane coming up, and it's going to hold everything off. And I'm looking at the 7-day forecast. I'm like, yeah, it's going to hold it off till Halloween when it's going to snow.
Okay. All right. Man, oh man. That's hardcore Wisconsin stuff.
Well, 4 years ago, we got 6 inches of snow Halloween morning. So we just had a light dusting that mostly melted the next day. So I'm happy about that.
That's definitely looking on the bright side. This is also a weird time of year for the prayer times. The sunset prayer time is going to be 6:14, and then the night prayer time is 7:34. So we're probably going to have 2 interruptions because we've got 17 pages of questions here to get through. So let's just skip to happy 5th anniversary on this.
I looked back and I'm going, it's only 4 years, but no, 2018, it's 5.
Yeah, 2018's 5 years ago now. And it's my turn to remember, Jeff. It is indeed. So you go.
Piggybacking off of last month's Jeff's cat, Yusuf, and how the cat got the name, you know, and the weird ways Jeff's mind worked. At one point, he told me, I'm going to get vanity license plates the next time I get plates. And I'm like, okay. He's like, can you guess what I'm going to get? And I'm like, service? And he's like, no. I'm like, but you're close. I'm going, okay. I mean, I can't think of anything that would fit in 7 spaces that's service related other than service. And he's like, Zervis. I'm like, what? What grouse called service? It's going to be Zerbuz. And I'm going, that's a deep cut that even like Margaret would have trouble going, wait, why would you get that? And,
right.
And I'm like, did you try to get service first to see if it was available? He's like, no, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to skip right to, the alternate spelling. I'm like, okay, Jeff. And it's the stereotypical, okay, Jeff, that's the way your mind works.
That was issue 18, wasn't it?
It was 18 and 19 because it started in Flurock,
right?
And then the next issue was when they went to sell everything to the fence, and Service ends up getting drugged at the end, which leads in the mind game. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting Jeff Seiler recollection. Like you say, even Margaret wouldn't have guessed that, and if you told her, would probably have to think for a couple of minutes, going,
where is that from? And isn't it Zerbus in the comic book? Like ends on an S. Cerbus.
I'll look because I'm going to put the images up from it, but it may have an S at the end, but I know it starts with a Z.
Right. Well, this is why I'm thinking this might be one of those weird Jeff Seiler things where it's two endings, because it starts with a Z and it ends with a Z. And he might have been cutting his own throat metaphysically in that sense. You don't want to have two your license plate begin with a Z and end with a Z. If you're somebody that contemplates implications like that, which Jeff really wasn't. He spent a fair amount of time just blundering around in that territory.
True.
Okay, we got, unless we have anything ongoing from last time, we do, but I'm going to pass on that one. We'll pick up on that on the next Please Hold. That was Lank Stevens, the guy that was going to do the backgrounds on his book and get somebody else to actually draw the characters, and wanting to know how Gerhardt and I did things. And it's like, what he's talking about doing gets more and more interesting the more you think about it. So I'm trying to keep that limited, but still do some thinking about it. And yes, it will. I think it'll keep until December. Then you write, last month, right after I sent the question fax, VGDC Maroro sent in these questions, and I read number one and said, next month. So here we go. This is a bit heavy, so Dave does. I'm going to say that he really pushed the outer boundaries. He's got 7 questions. Like we've gone from you can ask one question to you can have supplementary questions within your questions as long as they relate to it. And now we've got 7 separate questions. So I think we're going to have an arbitrary cap of 3 questions from now on for anybody. And I'll get you, if somebody sends you, as VGDC did, 7 questions, just take the first 3 and, email the other 4 back to them and say, only 3 questions. You can send these next month if you want to get in on the ground floor for the following month. So in looking at it and going, all right, we've already got 17 pages here. So I tell you what, I will type out my answers to the 7 questions, and then I read them out loud, and then read VGDC Maroro's questions aloud, timing myself on the bedside clock in my bedroom. And I think I got it down to 22 minutes. So if I start right now, we can maybe get all of VGDC in before the sunset prayer time. And wouldn't that be an accomplishment?
It would be a please hold miracle.
Well, let's not go that far. We'll see how we do. So anyway, this is a bit heavy, so Dave doesn't need to publicly answer this one if he doesn't want to, or if you don't want to. I feel like the only way you're, in parentheses, Dave, not you, quotes parentheses, is going to be able to dispel the stuff about Judith Bradford that got you kicked off of Van Sciver's Cyberfrog is if you were to record and upload video of you and Judith in the present day speaking to each other about what happened and her side of what it all was. Since you bringing up the Mann Act in your letter feels like it means what happened in that hotel room was at best, quote, delinquency of a minor, unquote, and at worst, explicit photography. Okay, I'll interrupt there to say delinquency of a minor, I will plead guilty to. If anybody wants to charge me with that, dating back to 1984, 1985, I will plead nolo contendere, and whatever the sentence is, 2 years in jail or whatever, that's it. Just, no, let's save everybody the court time and cost, and I will just plead guilty. And at worst, explicit photography. No, there was no explicit photography. I did set the timer on my clock to take or on my camera to take a selfie of the two of us. I do have some pictures of Judith in the hotel room, but they're all fully clothed. I did have a nude photo of Judith that she sent me when she was 21, and I don't have that. Any nude photos I had of Denny or any of my girlfriends, after I broke up with them, I destroyed the photos because I think that's the only legitimate thing that you can do. You can have nude photos of whoever it is if you're going out with them, and when you're not going out with them, they definitely need to be destroyed. He writes, I don't really care about Cyberfrog. That's just an example of something you got ousted from. So my answer to that, Dave doesn't need to publicly answer this one if he doesn't want to. I really wish that you, and by you I mean scandal mongers, and I tried to find a synonym for that didn't sound as bad, but it didn't really cover it. Wouldn't act as if I avoid answering questions. The whole point of Please Hold is that I'll answer whatever question anyone wants to ask. I think Matt will attest to the fact that in 5 years, I've never not answered a question because I didn't want to. Right, Matt?
The only questions you don't answer are the ones you don't know the answer to.
Yes, I think that's legitimate. Okay, the phrase "dispel the stuff about Judith Bradford." Dispel in what sense? My computer dictionary says to make a doubt, feeling, or belief disappear. That isn't possible. Doubts, feelings, and beliefs are individually held. Every Cerebus fan aware of the situation has an individual set of doubts, feelings, and beliefs about Judith Bradford, because everybody has their own set of doubts, feelings, and beliefs. That's what makes us the snowflakes that we are. The Ethan Van Sciver, quote, dump from Cyberfrog, unquote, situation appears to center on the pejorative term, quote, grooming, unquote, which was slapped on me with no interest in my side of it. As I said 5 years ago, there was no grooming with Judith. We had each other at hello. Had in quotation marks because she was underage. What, if anything, am I going to do about this? Being the question for me as the technical grown-up. Tread carefully. As I understood, tread carefully in 1984 when I first saw Judith to 1992 when I last saw Judith, which was, quote, carefully, unquote, only in the sense that atheists, which is what I was at the time, understand it. The heart knows what it wants. 50 Shades of Grey, all of that stuff. I've been celibate since 1998. Zero contact with and zero interest in women. The only legitimate form of sex, I concluded, as I was reading the Bible, is, quote, married in the sight of God, unquote, i.e. in a church, synagogue, or mosque sex. So there are, in my post-1996 opinion, no shades of gray. There's only married sex and adultery and fornication. Any attempt to complicate the question, to me, is rationalizing prurient self-interest. If you aren't potentially a husband, and I'm not potentially a husband, and I haven't been since 1983 when Denny left, any interest in women can only take the form of adultery or fornication. To me, masturbation, if you are fantasizing about adultery or fornication, is adultery or fornication. This is worlds away from what is believed in our society to be a healthy attitude towards sex. Society's opinion is an opinion I don't share. Like I say, worlds away. Sex and masturbation are, to me, both unhealthy in the same way that smoking cigarettes is unhealthy. If Judith is still alive and remotely interested, which I doubt, and wants to record a video or write a book telling her side of the story, that's up to her. The same as Susan Alston was/is free to write and publish Dave Sims' Last Girlfriend. Diana Schutz was free to write and publish her take on Reeves. And Denny was free to participate in I Have to Live with This Guy. Years after she had any contact with this guy whatsoever. I was the only, quote, husband, unquote, so honored in Blake Bell's book. As I told Chester Brown and Joe Matt at that time, if you want to read it and ask me questions about it, I'll be happy to try to answer your questions. But no, I have no interest in reading it myself. To respond to a lady's version of relationship events is ungentlemanly, as is lowering oneself to divulging a lady's intimate confidences in a tit-for-tat exchange. A lady gets the last word, and then the chips fall where they may. Depending on your doubts, feelings, and or beliefs, those chips never and can never fall. That's the situation in which I find myself, which has never changed, and I assume will never change. So then we move on to question number 2 from VGDC. May I request a sort of, quote, list of exercises for one to learn how to ink lines, specifically for learning the techniques to animate Calvin's mom's head, and specifically her hair rotating in space under a lamp without the lines all wobbling or going off model. The reason I specified Calvin's mom is that there's a bunch of very specific brush tilts and pressures done to subtly imply lighting, and her hair is less of a crapshoot to figure out than Calvin's, since one, Bill lights the top of her hair, which shows how it's kind of, what form is it, while Calvin's is usually flat white/yellow. 2, Bill constantly cheats Calvin's hair to be drawn the same at different angles, like Vicky's ears. 3, Calvin's mom's head is closer to a human head, while Calvin's head is a trapezoid, so there's more, quote, reality, unquote, to how it would naturally fall upon the head. 4, Calvin's hair is supposed to be messy, which adds a layer of complexity. That's number 2. Hold it, I just scrolled right through it. Cartooning is more forgiving than is animation, and animation is more forgiving than is photorealism. If you're doing comic art, it starts with the question of materials, pen or brush, and which pen or which brush. I have a Princeton Art of Brush collection brush, item 3050R, size 4, that I've been using for Nerudibus and Cerebus cartooning. It's no Winsor Newton Series 7 number 2, but it's reasonably sharp and holds its shape and cleans up nicely. between it and a new Hunt 102 pen nib and a slightly worn Hunt 102 pen nib. I have two of them on the go at all times, both in separate pen stocks. The brand new one marked with masking tape on the top of the pen stock so that I know which one is which. I can do reliable cartooning all the way up to a good approximation of photorealism. On Strange Death of Alex Raymond, I'll use a Winsor Newton Series 7, number 2, because I'm going deeper into the page and being way, way more accurate. Because cartooning is black and white, and you are talking about cartooning. I mean, Kelvin and Hobbes is brilliant, but it's not photorealism. Because cartooning is black and white, there's a more distinct penumbra than there is in, as an example, painting. Penumbra translates as, quote, almost shadow from the original Latin. Cartooning is capital S shadow and capital NS not shadow. You have to look at a two-dimensional pencil drawing and imagine it in 3 dimensions. Where is the shadow, and how far over does it go on the hair, face, arm, etc.? The more accurate the placement and width, the more lively the cartoon image, and the more lifelike the photorealism image. So it's not really an exercise, but I would suggest photocopy a blue pencil drawing, and by inking it in a variety of different ways with different line and brush widths, you'll eventually figure out what your ideal line weight and brush to pen balance is by trial and error. Let's say that you do 6 of them, one drawing in blue pencil, photocopy it 6 times, and ink it in different line weights, and then leave it for a day or so, and then just come back and lay them all out and look at them and go, okay, which one do I like the best? It's your style. So all that matters really is which one you think is the best Maroro line weight and brush. Okay, number 4. We are cooking with gas.
Wait, number 3.
Number 3?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just did 2. Right. Thank you. How does one figure out how far one can push the expression of a character until it becomes off-model? Specifically where it looks off to the point where the average viewer can notice it, since technically any deviation from the model sheet is off-model. Or are off-model and expression 2 different areas entirely? Since you've done, and then there's missing a line, but I think he was just using the examples of the sketch and the Spawn cover that, are these off-model or expression? Then he goes on, while these 2 are very similar methods of showing anger done in the same issue, but the right one's face looks just off to where it feels like someone tried to copy your art style instead of being drawn by you? Or is it that there's a bunch of ways you can go off-model without it being noticeable, but a few key ways that you have to be on-model to sell that it's all on-model? A lot of that is subjective, I'll say, before getting to my... and then he's got the other one, feels distinctly close to the golden age of Jeff animation in the expression. That's subjective. You're not describing what you're looking at. You're saying, this is what this looks like to me. There are other people who would say, no, this looks like it was drawn by Dave. I don't know what you're talking about. Number 3, Oh, I did just do that one. That's the cartooning is more forgiving than animation. But then it follows on to, once again, art is seeing, Leonardo's expression, that art is seeing. If you're drawing your character, now he skipped on ahead. Yeah, that's, you'll just have to edit that one. I answered that as number 3 because it seemed it was straying off of what he was talking about on number 2. So number 2 and number 3 are basically answering his number 2. Okay, yeah, then he writes, a lot of these are, well, they stick out like a sore thumb that it was outsourced, but the only thing that gives me, then he's talking about the Scooby-Doo animation. I think that the problem that he's getting into is that he's talking about comic art, comic book art, which is what I'm doing, or graphic novel art, or whatever you want to call it, isn't animation, and animation isn't comic art. There's no real such thing as on model in comic book art. You have to have that. I did answer this somewhere, but I can't see where it is. Off model is more of an animation term where you need to keep to a very narrow and simplified parameters so that the entire 5 minutes or 30 minutes or 90 minutes, the character doesn't noticeably change in front of the viewer. If you're copying Calvin's mom, then you need to study the parameters that Watterson stuck to over time and see where the evolution took place. If you're doing your own character, then again, art is seeing. I let the look of Cerebus evolve one page at a time rather than slavishly sticking to a model sheet. I don't think Bill was cheating with Calvin's hair. He was being spontaneous. The Zen kicks in if you let it in comic book art, particularly when you're inking the same character for years and or decades. That isn't the case in animation. Like I say, in animation, if you're not sticking to the model sheet and you've got God knows how many animators working on the same cartoon, it's, that character is just not going to look like that character to the average viewer. They're going to go like, what happened to his head between the previous scene and this scene? Well, because that scene was drawn by this person and this other scene was drawn by this other person 6 months apart. And, the person who did this one did mostly in between. And this person was the master cartoonist on the animated film. So I think you're comparing apples and oranges. If you're doing comic art, do comic art, and if you're doing animation, do animation. How did you go about making the rock climbing scene from Church and State so heart-poundingly thrilling that it took me all the way to 5 paragraphs of the brick wall that is chasing YHWH in like 2 days? Once again, art is seeing. If you're drawing your character climbing a sheer rock face, what you're trying to draw is a vertiginous experience. The ultimate 3-dimensional experience in 2 dimensions. To do that, the horizon line and vanishing point have to be directly behind the character, and the character foreshortened so only the uppermost parts of the figure are fully visible. Then you stay within those parameters and sharpen them. The less of the figure that's visible, the more vertiginous the experience. Moving on to number 5, if you had the ability to draw without any pain and any bit of your arms tomorrow, would you attempt a second magnum opus like Cerebus was? I feel like things in comics suck to the point where someone who makes something at the level of Cerebus back when it first started out could succeed really well, if not in sellout Turtles success, then in at least underground success. Hell of a Boss did it for animation for a single season, and only because 2D animation also sucks nowadays. As a high enough skill barrier that starting blind isn't that good of an option. So I think someone who's actually competent and not just hiring competent people could pull it off for the comic world. Well, again, I think you're comparing apples and oranges to be talking about comic book pages and animation. I would say, I disagree with your premise. I am doing two magnum opuses, Cerebus in Hell with a question mark and Strange Death of Alex Raymond. Both are very far away from genre works, which is really what you're asking about, i.e., why don't you do another magnum opus with lots of genre tropes, but done in brand new ways? The answer to that is because genre qua genre and its tropes don't interest me. I'm interested in documenting reality, not turning away from it or enabling others to turn away from it. Cerebus in Hell with a question mark illustrates, for me, how choosing OCD feminist-based id as the default societal setting on everything turns everything into a living hell. Here's the parody cover idea, and here's what OCD feminist-based id does to it. The parodies originate in non-ironic heroism, but in an OCD feminist-based id hell, heroism doesn't exist. Only OCD feminist-based id exists because it eradicates or delegitimizes anything that isn't OCD feminist-based id. I think I can say, although it'll happen after I am dead, what the Mad comic book and magazine were to the 1950s and 1960s, Cerebus in Hell with a question mark, is going to be to the earliest years of the 21st century. Someday that will be seen clearly, I think. What is your take? Oh, sorry, I missed the second sub-question. If you don't have those injuries, could you pull off writing a story at the level of Cerebus's hive? Not at the level of length, and probably using less explicit plot threads than the many paths Cerebus's on song took. But I'm fine with Akira over The Godfather Part 3. Very well expressed. I'll take a slice of hope if the whole cake would cause mental anguish to create. Well, that's again part of my answer is I'm not a genre guy, and it's like that's what you're talking about is why won't you do another genre magnum opus? Is because I'm not interested in genre escapism. I think escaping has been one of the biggest problems in our society. Stop escaping and start facing reality square on. Okay, now we're down to number 6. What is your take on the ethics of artists using an AI trained non-consensually on the work of other artists as a tool to help them, as opposed to taking what the AI shits out and selling that with minor modifications, since that's the big storm of competition artists are worried about? As examples, using an AI that changes the voice of an audio clip to George C. Scott's voice, one still needs to perform the audio clip for it to have a semblance of emotion, but it's still cheapening the work of a voice, a voice impressionist would do. using an image AI to figure out how to create the effect of a CRT screen in ink without relying on gray or halftone or copying the effect off a photograph that's been run through a filter. Using an image AI to generate character designs in the style of an artist that are then drawn by a person, thereby steals the job of character designers. Using an image enhancement AI to degrade an image to look like it was run through the same undisclosed analog processes the Simpsons went through to look the way it was. These can all be done with technology today, and as long as they don't explicitly compete with the originals, it's all legal, according to Authors Guild versus Google. Living inside your little telephone television is the only thing that makes these seem like relevant instead of entirely pointless questions. You can live inside your little telephone television, or you can make art. It's an either or. It's the Tin Woodsman side of OCD, feminist-based id, quote, thinking, unquote, in quotation marks, prefigured in The Wizard of Oz. Turn your back on God and trust instead in animals, the Cowardly Lion, dolls, the Scarecrow, and or machines, like the Tin Woodsman. The consequences of those choices are visible everywhere, but not if you choose to inhabit them and have them inhabit you. It's individual choice. There's good choices and there's bad choices. And like I say, all of the questions that you're asking me there seem completely irrelevant to reality. Number 7, does Glenn Vipu's technique work for cartoon characters that were constructed two-dimensionally, like Fred Flintstone, rather than the ones made of 3D forms like Mickey Mouse? And my answer to that was, I don't know anything about animation post-Roger Rabbit, which, personal opinion, I think destroyed the animation field with too much tech and too much Tex Avery and not enough Robert McKimson and Friz Frelling. And there we go. It's a please hold miracle with almost 9 minutes to go until my prayer time.
Okay, I didn't read most of these questions because I started reading them. I'm like, as I said, having to reformat all of the email into a document I can send up. I'm like, I think I hate this guy.
No, you said you think that you don't like it.
True.
True. That's one of those. I don't think Maroro and I would have too much to say to each other at a party, assuming I would ever go to a party again for whatever reason. But he's definitely a thinker. He's definitely got his own take on things, and was looking for my feedback. And he seems to be a deep enough thinker that I don't think he's going to be offended by what I said to him. Like, well, catch me ever coming to Please Hold for Dave Sid again. Well, you're going to talk about that. No, he's not himself an OC feminist-based id type, but he does live in the same world with them, which seems to me reflected in a lot of his concerns. It's like, the feminists are very, very keen on the Tin Woodsman, and they would definitely trust the Tin Woodsman more than they would trust God. And the further along that goes, the more ridiculous and the more destructive it becomes. So, it was. I think I would definitely like to see him back here asking more questions. But if you can ask them 3 at a time next time, please. So I'm going to go into my prayer time, and I will be back momentarily, Matt.
Okay. I will talk to you then.
Talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.